I am a full-time university professor, and my job is exactly as sexy as it sounds. On most days, I simply read an ungodly amount. And when I'm not doing that, I'm teaching. And when I'm not doing that, I'm either prepping for classes or grading students' work. And when I'm not doing that, I'm sitting in on committee meetings doing service work for my department, my college, my discipline, the community in which I live, all while trying to maintain a full-time performance poetry career and conduct my own research. In other words, I put in work, y'all. I love my job, though. On most days, teaching for me is like one of those really complicated math problems where if Johnny had 17 candy bars and then he boarded a train from Kansas going 90 miles an hour, how many basketballs can he burn on the roof before the children start crying again? In other words, it's confusing as fuck. But I love how we come together and almost always figure it out. I had this one student, y'all, brown as the border that crossed her, asked if I think her white colleagues understand that her family had been trying to get her into college for generations. Said she wanted to understand the weight of that, wanted them to know that she picked this campus the same way her grandfather picked fruit, that it was slow and painful, but what else was she gonna do? Said she was upset that her colleagues seem angrier with illegal immigration than they do with banking practices. Fact, it would cost this country's government roughly $70 billion to pay for all tuition at public colleges and universities. Instead, we spend that much to subsidize the cost and over $100 billion in student loans. When tuition is steadily rising and starting salaries are dropping, degrees become no different than a designer bag, a cheap fashion statement, not even worth the trip to the mall. No one ever tells you that you have to drown in debt in hopes of making it to the shore, that the loan system is a lot like Alcatraz, like Rikers Island. We're getting screwed while the guards don't even have the decency to pretend to look the other way. The only difference between student debtors and prisoners is that students are taught to think they're on the outside of the bars. What world do we live in where we bail out banks who are too big to fail, even though they bank on the failure of our students? What world do we live in where college professors struggle to pay back student loans? It's like we learn nothing from Biggie. We're getting high on our own supply. Some days I feel like a wolf in sheep clothing. Or better, I feel like a shepherd leading his flock to slaughter. I teach classes on structural racism and gender inequality in a system that is more willing to punish its students for plagiarism than it is for sexual assault. What are we telling? What are we telling our students when we teach them that the thoughts of dead white men are far more valuable than their own bodies? The university has become a Black Friday sale. It does not care whose body gets trampled in the stampede of it all, but us being here is a revolutionary act. We force them to peel back the curtains to a well-manicured show. We watch them squirm whenever we open our mouths because they know we're not comfortable with just getting into the system. We want to claw this motherfucker down, and that should make them uncomfortable. It ain't called growing pains for nothing. So, if Johnny left Kansas on a train going 90 miles an hour with $170,000 in debt, how much longer will it take for us to realize that if he actually burned basketballs on a roof, it would still make so much more sense than all of this?